Hey, so today I want to talk about 10 questions that you need to ask your estate agent when you're viewing an old Irish house. Now, obviously the way stuff is going at the moment, you're not viewing a lot of houses in person, but these questions are still really, really important, and they're a great checklist to have with you on your phone or in your wallet somewhere so that you can just tick them off and know that even if they don't know the answers off the top of their head, that they're at least looking into it for you, and you're going to know more about this house once you've found out all the things that I have on my list. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to ask the estate agent is, where is the septic tank? Most detached houses in rural Ireland will have either a septic tank or an above ground treatment system. The thing with older houses though is that they might have neither of them, and you're not necessarily going to know. I mean, the things people did with their waste years ago, you don't even want to think about. So even seeing a loo in the house doesn't necessarily mean that there is a septic tank going with it. It might be in one of the fields that's not being sold with the house. You need to find this stuff out. Now, it's not a given the estate agent is going to know this stuff off the top of their head, but definitely ask them and get them looking into it from a very early stage in the process. So the second thing you need to talk about is water. Houses in rural Ireland will usually have one of three things. They'll either have a well, they'll have mains water, or they'll be on some sort of a scheme. Now, the thing about it is even very, very old houses in Ireland can have a private well. So it's not like the septic tank thing. The age of the house doesn't necessarily mean it's ruled out from having its own water source, but you need to look into it early on. You need to make sure if there is a well that it's on the land that you're getting. Don't just assume that seeing a sink inside is going to guarantee you water, but definitely if you don't see any sort of a sink or any sort of plumbing, there is a good chance that there mightn't be water there at all. So ask the question and find out early on so you can decide on your budget. So number 3 is kind of still in keeping with the second point I was making, and it's to do with your water being on a private scheme. Now, a private scheme is one of those things where people that live quite close together in the community kind of get together, make a little mini mains water scheme, but they upkeep it themselves, they maintain it, everything is done in this little community. Now, there is every chance a house in rural Ireland can be on that, especially if it's in a little cluster of houses. It's one of those things that's worth checking into, but you also need to make sure that if you are connected to a scheme, that you know if there are any yearly maintenance charges, things like that. You need to know if there's a scheme nearby and you can get connected to it, how much it's going to cost, because sometimes it might still be cheaper to just sink your own well than to lay pipes across 5 or 6 fields to get to the closest house on the scheme. Definitely, if a scheme is mentioned in any way, you need to ask questions about it. Ask about charges, ask about the closest house to you if you're not connected to it. And then again, you see, you can just decide on your budget based on the information you have at hand. Again, the agent is not necessarily going to know this stuff. He's not going to have it in his back pocket, but they will look into it and they will find it out, because once they know it for you, they're going to be able to tell everybody. So it's going to be way better for them. So yeah, ask the questions, get the answers, and decide whether the fact that the house is on a scheme is actually worth the increase in price that could be added onto the house because of it. The next thing you have to ask when you're viewing a house is, how long has it been empty? So if you're viewing a house and it's been closed up for 20 years and it's still dry and it still feels solid and everything inside is quite intact, then that's brilliant. But if you go into a house and it looks really wet and it feels quite unstable and maybe the roof isn't in great condition, and then the agent tells you that the house has been closed up for only a year or two, you need to ask some serious questions about what's happening to that house. So find out how long it's been empty and use that information to make your decisions moving forward. Next thing you want to find out is, when was the house last wired? This is one of those things that's going to tell you whether you need to budget in for rewiring the house. And look, the estate agent's not going to know very minute specifics on this, but a ballpark decade even on this will help you a huge amount when it comes to budgeting. A huge one that you need to find out is, are there any rights of way on the land? This is one of those things that can be quite easily sorted, but it can be so heartbreaking if you find this out at the final stages when the solicitor's doing his searches and you kind of don't really have a lot of leverage at that stage because your offer's already been accepted and stuff has moved quite far along. Find out if there are any rights away, get that information early on, and again, use it to decide on the budget that you're going to bid on the house with. Next thing I want you to ask about is the boundary lines. Now, a site map is a great thing to have here. A lot of estate agents will put these up, but if they haven't put them up or they don't have them to easily share with you, even just getting them to walk around the boundary with you so you get a feel for where the end of your property is a really, really big thing. Don't ever assume that anything is included with your land until you 100% have it in writing that it's included. I've seen people bid on cottages, assume farmyards were with them, and the farmyard was owned and run on a daily basis by busy farmers. So you have to know this information. Your agent will have it because the legalities of selling a house involve the site being marked out on a map so that they understand what's actually for sale. They do know this information, so get it off them, and then at least you know what you're buying. Next one that's a great one to ask is, how long has the house been for sale? Now, in a world where stuff is listed online the whole time and it can be easily just taken down and renewed, and then when you look at the listing, it's like, oh, it's been up 3 weeks. You genuinely have no idea how long a place has been for sale. Now, it's one of those things that you don't want to be going up to the agent and going, how long has this been for sale? Because I want that to affect what I bid. But even just dropping it into conversation when you're talking to them, going, oh, and how long has this been up? I'm just wondering, and just get the information out of them without being really aggressive about it will greatly affect your bargaining power when it comes to what you bid on the house. My house, when I bought it originally, was up for 100,000, but it had been for sale for a really, really long time. And because of that, I bid 70 and ended up getting it for 80. So you just use the information that you have, but make sure that when you're getting that information that you do it in a subtle way, not in an aggressive way, because there's more of a chance that the agent is not going to twig that you're asking it and just going to give you the information without even thinking about it. Next one that's a great one to ask is what type of heating the house has. Now, when you're standing in a sitting room and you're looking at radiators on a wall, it's not really that obvious whether they're run by a fire, whether they're run by oil heating or anything like that. So ask the question and find out that information. The thing about old houses is that open fires don't always guarantee that there's solid fuel heating in the house. The fires can just heat the rooms that they're in and nothing more. The same goes for a Rayburn. Like, you can buy Rayburns that have no boiler in the back of them and the pipes don't heat any radiators. So seeing a Rayburn or any kind of cooker like that isn't necessarily a given that there's heating. There's also Rayburns that run on oil. So even seeing it and going, oh, that means I can have a little fire in that and burn, mixed fuels and stuff in it is not a given. Ask the information, find out what kind of heating is there, and again, let it affect your budget then after that. The last one to ask, and by far one of my most important questions that I ask when I'm going to look at houses, is where is the nearest shop? Now, I'm talking a small shop, a very, very small shop. You need to think, you need to get loo roll, you need to get a carton of milk. This is not going to do your weekly shop. This is small things. You've ran out of firelighters and it's really, really cold outside and you need to get your fire lighting. This is the kind of shop I'm talking about. I always aim for under 3 miles with a shop like this. If you've grown up in rural Ireland, that's totally normal. 3 miles is close enough for the shop to be that worst case scenario. You could walk to it if you needed to. And that's it. 10 questions to ask an estate agent the next time you're viewing a house, either virtually or in person. Get this information off them, even if they don't have it to hand at the time. Get them looking into it for you. And if you do this with every single house, you're going to be able to make so much better decisions when it comes to the ones that you want to shortlist. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you've any questions or you have any suggestions for more videos, just leave them below and I'll try my best to make them.